Today on Conversations we have my very good friend Louise Mathias. Louise is a barrister and a non-court dispute resolution expert, as well as a social and emotional intelligence coach. Louise, thank you so much for having a conversation with me today and sharing it with everybody out there. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling not too bad. I'm looking forward to having our conversation. We're on the same page in many ways, so
Definitely.
I'm looking forward to having.
It's always good to have a chat to you. And I have to say something, your outfit, and I say this with love, is very coordinated with your background.
I know, I love the look of light, can you tell? I like to be colour coordinated, pattern coordinated.
Ah, she's lovely.
Have to match.
She's lovely. Does she have a name?
No, I haven't given her a name, but she's very friendly.
I love it. She's always looking at me.
Yes, she is. And that's the reason why it's there. It's because it gets people to laugh.
Yeah. So for those of you listening on the podcast and can't see us on video, there's a cow in the background in a photo frame behind Louise, kind of peeking out, looking at me, which is always lovely. Yeah. It's photo bombing. Okay, Louise, let's get into it. Tell me a little bit about how long have you been in the law? How long have you been practicing?
I was admitted in mid-2010 and I practiced, well, I first went to the court and I was a judge's associate. That was my first role in law, but that was very short-lived. And then I became a solicitor and then I came to the bar in May of 2012.
Okay, so a little bit later on in life. What were you doing before then?
Well, I've done lots of different things. I had 30 years outside of law, so I was able to pack a lot of different experiences in there.
Yeah.
But for the 15 years prior, I worked in medicine. I was a practice manager for medical specialists, so I really kind of worked my way through the body. And I, through plastic and reconstructive surgery, neurosurgery, all of, a lot of different areas. And I got to go to theatre with them as well, which I just absolutely loved. It was so fascinating.
It's a bit of a change for you from, the medical side to the legal side. So, so when you started, sort of what were some of the biggest challenges for you practicing law, having had so much other experience before in other things?
I have really found it quite challenging as to the what I think is the win at all costs kind of mentality, that if you're considered to be collegiate, or if there's other methods to go about negotiating other than aggression, it's not really considered. I find that quite difficult. Also, I think the law is set up a lot for extroverts. You've got to think quick, you've got to be the loudest, whether it be in meetings, whether it be in advocacy, whatever. And I think that if you are an introvert, and I tend to be more on the side of introversion, no, I'm an ambivert, I'm a little bit more on the introversion side. So I think that people who are on the introverted side have more challenges. I've certainly had more challenges. And I also think that I've not seen it before in any of the other areas that I've worked in, that even in medicine, obviously they need technicality, surgeons need technicality. Not a lot of them have bedside manner, but there are some that have really good bedside manner, but they really do have a helping motivation. Most of them go into medicine really wanting to help. And yet in law, I see so much emphasis placed on technicality. Obviously, it's something we all need. To me, it's a baseline competency.
Yes.
With so little emphasis and value placed on how do I deal with my opponent? How do I negotiate so that I can get the best? If you're and you're considered weak if you're not that aggressive type. And I guess I've really struggled with that. That human element in law is often devalued.
It's funny you say that, actually. I just wanted to sort of pick up a point that came to me while you were talking, and that is, it seems to me that a lot of the lawyers that I speak to who entered law later in life after having done other things seem to pick up on this kind of culture in law and find it a little bit strange and a little bit, like funny to talk about almost. Whereas, and I was one of those lawyers who started very young, straight from school, high school into uni, and I suppose I became a bit indoctrinated into the culture, and I didn't find it strange until I got a little bit older and I went, hang on a minute, there's got to be another way. So I just wanted to point that out. It's interesting that I think if you've got a little bit of life experience behind you and then you come into the law, it's a bit of a shock. It's like, whoa,
it's a huge shock.
Yeah.
It's like I almost think it's kind of, and without it wanting to say, it's like we're a little bit dehumanized in law, where I haven't actually experienced, I've worked in banking, I've worked in lots of different things, but I've not seen it to the level that I've seen it in law. And
Yeah.
it's been really, it's been a real challenge for me.
And it kind of confirms some of the things that I've been thinking, and that is, I suppose every profession has its challenges and its stresses and its pressures and all that sort of stuff. But I think what we experience as lawyers is quite unique in that kind of sense. So it's worth talking about. So what sort of impact did all of that have on you as a person and as a practitioner? How'd you deal with that?
I still have to be myself. One of my core values is authenticity.
Yeah.
And I think, as you say, coming to law later in life, my personality and my value system had already been well and truly set.
Yeah.
So I can only be me. There is only one of me.
Yes.
According to my values, I still have to practice according to the way that I see is a proper way to be able to assist people. So I have just kind of continued on the pathway of forging a path for myself according to my own values, according to my own personality, according to my own skills. And I think that that's something that we all have to learn to do if we're not naturally the aggressive type, or we're not. And I think by saying that the automatic thought is that, well, if you're not aggressive, that you're a pushover and you're weak and you're not good.
Not cut out for this job. Yeah.
And that's not the case at all. There are many ways to be able to be persuasive and interact with people to actually get really good results.
Yeah, that's true. There are more ways. I'm just curious, as for the younger lawyers that are sort of entering this profession, and I mean, I don't want to use the word indoctrinated. I think there's probably a better word, but let's just go with that word and sort of get used to the culture, I suppose, and believe it to be the only way. What would you say to them if they're not feeling like they're quite fitting in, and maybe even thinking, maybe I'm not cut out for this?
I think that people need to be able, or as particularly young lawyers, and I can understand them feeling like that, but they need to be able to take the time out to be able to find out for themselves, I think, at least what their personalities are, what their values are, what they can contribute, because everybody has got something to contribute to law, whether you're an extrovert, an introvert, whether you're an aggressive type, or we need really strong people in law, as well as the people who are able to deal with people who have better skills in managing people as well. So everybody has assets, and it's about finding the space where a person can firstly getting to know themselves, and then in that way we can get to know it. I think we can get to know and understand other people better, and then working out where it is to place ourselves into a place that we fit into.
Yeah.
And also to be able to increase our skill set so that we can still be ourselves in an environment that maybe is a bit foreign to us.
Yeah, so totally, I agree with that. And one of the things I talk to a lot of young lawyers about is values, working out what's important to you, because a lot of the times we practice, but we don't really pay attention to what our values are. And so we feel a disconnect sometimes, and we don't know why. And most of the time it's because we're not living or practicing in line with our values. And so becoming aware of those values then helps you make choices about, places to work, the sort of law to take on, the sort of lawyer that you want to be, and if that's all in line with what's important to you, what your values are and what you believe, then there's going to be a lot more harmony internally and therefore externally, I think. So
and there's going to be increased productivity as well.
Yeah,
there's going to be increased contentment. People are going to be happier. They're going to be more successful if they're living according to their values, practicing, as you say, practicing according to your values. It's a win-win for everybody, really.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier something about the technical skills that should just be a given that we all come to law with, and that's why we spend years in law school, studying the art of contract drafting and so forth. But we come to the law a lot of the times missing a few other essential skills that are sometimes called soft skills. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know you're very big on those skills being sort of front of mind.
I'll just use negotiation as an example.
Yeah.
I think that there are I think half of our practice or our skill set is based in the technicality.
Yeah.
We all need to know how to do the technical, otherwise, that we're not going to be very good lawyers.
Yeah, sure.
But the other half is, as in when we're, for example, interacting with a person in a negotiation. I went to Harvard last year and did a course on negotiation leadership and how to handle difficult people. And it was really talking about, yes, you need to know what the pie is, how to, what the legal side of it is. But by far the majority of the conversation was about the human skills that we need. How do I read the room? How do I know what that person is? How do I know what that person wants? How do I know what that person needs? And it's about those people skills that helps us to actually be much more successful. So instead of going in, 100 miles an hour, by actually taking a step back, asking questions, really having good listening skills, because we actually learn a lot from other people as to what their case is by listening to what they really need, etc., and their personality, so that we can work out how it is that we can, if we're negotiating, get a win-win. So it's not all about I win, you lose.
Yeah.
So it's all of these human skills, whether it be negotiation, whether it be we're going to court and we're advocating, we're trying to persuade a judge.
Yeah.
So that's human skills as well. It's not just writing, the technicalities down.
That's true.
And our teams at work, how do we get our teams to be able to be the most productive teams? Well, that takes human skills. It's not out of a piece of legislation. So these are all human things to be able to make us the most productive and successful lawyers.
Yeah, totally agree. It's almost that kind of what makes the difference between a good lawyer and a really, really good lawyer or great lawyer. And I think the difference is those skills. Because if we assume that we all come to the law with the base level technical skills, which we can learn, what makes the difference is those other human skills, which unfortunately aren't taught to us in law school to any kind of, great extent or an effective level. But yet we're expected to have those as soon as we step out of, college or uni and we into our first role, and there's a client in front of us. You're meant to manage expectations, manage time, understand emotions, communicate effectively. And it's like, whoa, where do if I don't have those skills, So on that, you went and you became an emotional and social intelligence coach, which is, a huge, I think, because that's pretty much those human soft or essential skills that I think are sometimes missing. Tell us a little bit about what that is, first of all, and how you came to become a coach.
Well, I have always been really interested in personalities and being the best version of ourselves, regardless of who we are, which I think we all can be the best version of ourselves if we are a little bit introspective.
Yes.
So I read Daniel Goleman's books many, many years ago, and I've done some courses over the years on social and emotional intelligence. And then I became certified as a social and emotional intelligence coach. What Daniel Goleman says is that, yes, baseline competency, IQ, intelligence, plus our technical skills only have a certain amount of sway when it comes to our overall success. Right. What really, as you said earlier, what really makes people successful and happier, more resilient, is their emotional intelligence skills. So that's about being self-aware, knowing our own emotions, knowing what makes, what triggers us, and knowing those in the moment, so that we can also talk about our weaknesses. We're not afraid to talk about our weaknesses, because all of us have got strengths and all of us have got weaknesses. So having that self-management as well. So knowing what triggers us. Somebody might send us an email and it's really aggressive. Well, are we triggered? How are we going to manage our emotions when that happens? And all that, and motivation. What motivates us? Is it money? Is it status? Or if we're socially, emotionally intelligent, we'll actually be, our motivation will be beyond that. Yes. It will be have higher levels than just money and status. So there's five competencies in emotional intelligence. The other one is social intelligence, and the other one is empathy as well. So how empathetic, how well or how skilled are we at putting ourselves or trying to understand? We'll never probably really understand how another person thinks, but we don't really have to understand. We just have to let them know that we're doing our best to understand how they're thinking or what their position is. That can have huge impacts as far as persuasion is concerned, and actually calm people down.
Definitely. It's really about being able to, you know, recognize the emotions that you're feeling and the other person's feeling and managing that
Yeah.
situation. You know, so many times you come across people who seem to have, like, you know, like blinkers on. They just can't seem to recognize their own emotions and might, you know, have outbursts and, you know, other sort of emotional reactions without having any appreciation about how that's affecting the other person that they're talking to, how that's going to affect the outcome, the energy in the room, just totally kind of in their own little bubble, you know. And I think so. Learning about emotional intelligence for me and becoming more emotionally intelligent has really made the world of a difference, not just in law, you know, in
Yeah.
life, you know, as a parent, as a friend, as a
Yeah.
wife, as a all sorts of other roles that we play, which we do. We're not just
Yeah.
lawyers.
Yeah.
So that's so valuable. I think, and you know, you're doing great work. Tell me, where to from here? What's next for you? What are you going to be
Well, I've got
doing?
a couple of projects on
Yeah,
the. I'm a bit like, well, yeah, a bit like you, Lara, in that I'm a
yeah,
continual learner. I know you love continually learning.
yes,
I love continually learning. And I in May I'll become a certified high performance coach. I'll be going to
beautiful,
America to do that.
awesome.
Plus, I'm in the process of writing a book
Mm,
um, titled "What You Didn't Learn in Law School and Need," and it's talking about um, uh, getting to know your personalities, practicing accordingly, your values, mental health, perfectionism, and then talking about the skills and passing on what I've learned throughout my learning through Harvard and life about communication,
yeah.
negotiation, mediation, and then talking about alternate dispute resolution and then leadership and culture. So, how to make really good leaders, because leadership isn't just about the people at the top of the tree. We can
No,
all be leaders and affect change. So
definitely.
that's what I'm in the process of writing.
That's really exciting. I, for one, will can't wait to read it, and I think it's something that we need more of, and not just that. You know, once we start practicing, I really think we need to be taught these things early on.
Yeah. And it's not too
And
late to change. We can all change it
no,
regardless of where we are in our careers.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Louise, thank you so much for your time. I
Great.
love talking to you. You're an absolute gem, and we're so lucky to have you in the profession. So,
Me too.
good luck with everything that you do. And we might have a part two, maybe once you've come back and you've done your certification, you've written your book. It'll be great to have you back and share with others some more insight about what you've learned. So, thank you, and see you soon.
Thanks very much, Lara. It was a joy.